my Fender Stratocast guitar. Oof. That is a bit of a mouthful. I think I might just yeah. Yes, if anyone's never seen a healing tattoo, yeah, I'm getting the itchy phase. Even I'm surprised how early I'm getting it, but but when I think of it, I've actually been I have been doing my usual tricks of the trade, a few little things that I do that do speed up healing of tattoos, so that's probably why. And after all, we are, what, 4 days in, so it's not that surprising. And that, I remember, was a really itchy area the last time. Anywho, and that. So, yes. So, let me try and just bring you down. Apologies for looking at a healing tattoo, guys. Yes, and that you may think, oh my god, that looks as gunky as hell. Yes. Excuse, guys. And that, yes, that is a whole different situation. If you're interested in that healing and you don't mind this video being too rambly, but if not, skip a couple of minutes on this. Essentially, the reason why that is really, really messy versus this one is because if anyone remembers my all about my Mickey tattoo, which would have been tattoo 11, and you probably remember me having a lot of issues with the second skin. And what kept happening is it kept refilling up with plasma. I kept ripping it. I think I must have taken like 3 sheets off it. And then I had to heal it the conventional way. Then I got bad scabs. Then I had to have a whole touch up. Anywho. But that did teach me a very good lesson, because unlike Sanoderm, which I believe is the original second skin brand, the one I'm using right now, which is the one that my own artist actually provided me. This isn't the one that I usually use, which is Tattoo Med. This is Dermalize. I've heard of Dermalize, of course, no end of times, but this is the first time I've ever used this particular brand and that. And you know, it's always good that you learn from things, and what I've learned is, you know, one, it saves on second skin and everything else, but the reason why that is still messy like that is because I did not change it after like the 24 hours, because if it had literally, if the seals had broken and I had no choice, of course I would have, but I prefer to leave it on, because I think what happened with the Mickey, and seriously could have happened to this one, is by ripping the band-aid off, just so you're changing the ink, you know, cleaning it and then putting another sheet on. I think it was that, and believe me, the following day and even up to yesterday, well, not so much yesterday, but even that to a point, my skin was just so raw, and I think it literally was ripping that band-aid off. I hope I'm not repeating myself, it's just the way I'm explaining it, was what traumatized that skin. So that's the reason why that still looks gunky. Although if you'd seen it like on 24, like the day after, you would have said, oh my god, I can't even see what that was yet, because it had seriously filled with plasma and that. And the reason why I've got tape on the edges is the seals were I actually taped it up as soon as I got home. No qualms to James. I don't know if he ever will watch this. Don't worry, James, I'm not criticizing you, but I will say this, it wasn't actually put on as smoothly as, no offense intended, as I would have tried to have done it. There was a few wrinkles in it and a few air bubbles, and what can happen there, and it did actually, not badly, I managed to get home okay with it, but I already had a little bit of leakage. That's what happens when you get air bubbles in second skin. So I immediately put tape around it, and it was fine. And then what happened is there literally was so much fluid that they actually did get into the tape. Oh geez, this is seriously a long video, and that, sorry guys, and that. So that's a bit about the whole healing side of it. and that and everything. And if you're wondering how much longer that's going to be on, that's the other thing I liked is Dermalize you can actually leave on for 7 days, where the one I usually use, which is Tattoo Med, assuming if I ever find the roll, yeah, joys of taking second skin away with you when you go up to Liverpool and you get this. Yes, before you ask, yes, I did bring the roll back with me, but it somehow seemed to get lost in all the unpacking near Christmas, it seems, and that. So, after that long interlude, and that, so where does this tattoo come from? Well, a sort of a version of this. I've had this idea in my head. Funny enough, I actually got this idea around 2 months. So pretty much, actually, funny enough, it would have been about this time of year, April-ish, and that, of 2019, and that I'd just got these done, and I had just booked a few weeks previous to that. I'd booked for my poppy that I later got done at my convention in June, and I had this idea, and that can't go into the details around that initially, because I initially was going to get this in a small version with something else in this gap. And I was looking into finally getting that done this year, but situations around getting the money, getting to the artist, etc., etc. But then in reality, there was just a few things, like I couldn't get to the artist when I would have wanted to. And as I started thinking it over, it also became apparent to me, and he kind of let me know that, seriously, if I had shrunk it to literally this small, it literally would have looked like a hot mess in the future. And you know what? Even I sort of came to that conclusion even before he did, actually, after having this idea for 3 years. And I thought, actually, what is wrong with splitting these and all of that, though? So can't say what that's all about, but that will be in the future whenever I get that tattoo. But it's kind of stood with me, and I thought, no, I still want that guitar. And I was sort of thinking it over more. I mean, initially, the initial idea, it was in tribute and that. So I know you haven't had a detailed look of it. What I'll do is I'll post an actual photograph of it new so you can see it and that. But there's also 3 letters on here. This is in tribute to my 3 favourite guitarists of all time. Unfortunate for me, they all played the Fender Stratocast guitar, so at least that was easy enough. And those were, or are, Buddy Holly. You may think, someone of my age loves that. Yeah, I grew up with him thanks to my dad, who was a keen lover of Buddy Holly, and that. Basically, he lived for 76 years and 2 months. Funny enough, I said these exact words at his funeral. He lived for 76 years and 2 months, and he only ever went to one concert in his life in March 1958. And yes, that was Buddy Holly and the Crickets on the only UK tour that they did before Buddy, of course, tragically died in that plane crash in 1959, if anyone knows the story. That's where, as Don McLean said, the original "The Day the Music Died" came from, and that. So as you can imagine, growing up with that music, I've loved that music for my whole life nearly. And then so that's what because I've got the surname initials. I've got HJK on the curve outer edge of the guitar. As I said, you'll see it in that picture. And that. And then more recently, So they are a much more recent addition in my life, but my God, are they like, you know, if anyone was to say who do you prefer over Linkin Park or Runrig, bearing in mind I've got both of them tattooed, for the amount that I listen to them and watch concerts of them, I think it would be Runrig. So yeah. And Malcolm Jones, the main guitarist, who not only plays the Fender Stratocast, he plays other instruments like galore. But my God, he actually plays like 3 different versions of that guitar. Yeah, he has well, I assume he's still got them and he plays them in his personal life because, of course, Runrig has retired now after a 45-year career. And that, but he played at one point, he played a buttercream one, he played a red one, and he played a brown guitar. So that shows you how much he loves that guitar. And I must admit, every time I used to listen to him, particularly on some of those instrumental tracks that he wrote, literally he's amazing. You know, just like Buddy was like on the high powered drum, or he could go much more contemporary and that, but he was a true rock and roll pioneer, so it was more the sort of high speed stuff really. And that saying that though, Mum's favourite record was actually True Love Ways by him, actually. Well, still is as far as I know. And then K is definitely my newest edition, which is the reason why I went in that order. Yeah, in case anyone was wondering, no, I didn't go alphabetical. I went in the order that they kind of came into my life, essentially. K is for Mark Knopfler. Now, I hate to say this, I know one person that might think, oh my God, you must be a massive Dire Straits fan and all of that lot. Yes, I am talking about one of my subs that writes on my videos quite a lot. And that, I'm sorry, I really actually have to quell this now, because I know mentioning Mark Knopfler, everyone thinks, oh my God, she's a massive Dire Straits fan. Funny enough, that is a bit of it's a bit up and down like a yo-yo with me right now, because the other half is a massive Dire Straits fan. My dad was a Dire Straits fan. Yeah, similar taste all around, it seems, in this family. And that, but weirdly, no. As I said to James, my artist, do you know sometimes there is just one record or one situation that literally everything lines up? And of course, I've always known about Mark Knopfler, and that, you know, my dad had mentioned him over the years, the other half, blah, blah, blah. But did I ever listen to Dire Straits? No, I didn't. Or even Mark, he's had a massive solo career as well, after all. And once again, guys, I do apologise if this video is really long. I might actually have to split this into 2 parts. So if if you wonder why they come out separately, that's why. And that, but I hope not. And that, but no, it was a situation where, and you would almost say it almost lined up, except for the fact that it didn't have Malcolm involved. But essentially, my favourite Buddy Holly song is actually Learning the Game. And just for the record, I prefer the original, not the much more modern and more commonly dubbed version that you hear of that song by him. But that's a whole different story. And that, and everything. And in case you don't know about Buddy Holly, when he was on his last tour, he'd actually essentially broken up with the Crickets, and he was on that Winter Dance tour, and he was with another, he put another band together, and one of his band members was Waylon Jennings, and unfortunately I can't remember what instrument he plays, sadly, and I never paid attention to it much, unfortunately. Now, it's supposed to be originally on that plane, it was supposed to be Buddy and his 2 bandmates and that, but Waylon swapped his seat with the Big Bopper because the Bopper had flu at the time. And, you know, even though we tragically lost those three, Waylon Jennings has gone on to have a very, very successful career. You might not know of him like really like super internationally, but he is renowned, and that, you know, he definitely sings, but I think he does, you know, I think he does play an instrument as well, but I can't remember what the instrument is. So he decided to team up. I think it was for the 50th anniversary of when um the plane crash happened, that he decided that he was going to record learning the game. And who better to team up, because that's the other thing, they've completely flipped that song on its head. They took an up-tempo, seriously the up-tempo rock and roll song of Learning the Game. If you look it up on YouTube, either the dub version or the original, either way you'll get the same kind of vibe, and they turned it into the most slow, haunting melody ballad you ever could get. And some people say, oh my god, what the heck have they done to it? And he teamed up with Mark Knopfler. Now, if anyone knows about Mark Knopfler, my god, he knows how to play that guitar in such a gorgeous way. And when I heard that version, I'm thinking, oh help, this is literally neck and neck with Buddy's original to me. And it was only then that I really heard Mark's incredible guitar skills, and it was that just made me think, okay, you don't have to be a big massive fan of everyone and own all of their music in, but you can appreciate and admire someone for their skill, and that is what Mark Knopfler is for me. And then weirdly enough, not long after, I literally booked this tattoo. I booked it about 2 months ahead because James had a, you know, he books out quite a lot. He must be quite a popular artist, which I can understand why. And that I unfortunately had a and that I was it was I can't even remember how long it did seem to drag on for ages. Like, my energy was bad. Basically, there was an occasion where I'd ate something and it hadn't agreed with me, and we know those nights, don't we? You know, literally, you know, back and forth to, you know, being sick pretty much all night. Sorry if that's horrible triggering for everyone. I do apologize on that. I'm ending that now. But basically, I had that night where I literally just was trying to sleep, couldn't, needed to sleep, and I had Amazon Unlimited at the time. I'd been given one of those 3-month trials, and that, or it might have just been automatically included in my Prime, I'm not quite sure. But I essentially asked my ALEXA, can't say the name because I've got one of them in these rooms, play me Dire Straits at a really, really low level, and that. And she literally must have played me like about 5 hours worth of that. I don't know how much of their music it was, but it must have been several of their albums, I assume. And I thought, do you know what? I could definitely see why a lot of people do like these. Do I know the ins and outs of all their songs and what would be my favourite? No. And that, although sentimentality, but that's a bit too much of a personal story. But all I'm going to say is Why Worry has always been a favourite song in this family, but some people would say why, sadly, not the Dire Straits version. In case anyone doesn't know, 6 months after Dire Straits wrote and recorded that song, the Everly Brothers also recorded that song. So I do have an affinity to that song, and that, but I know it more from the Everly Brothers version than Dire Straits. But I will say one thing, Dire Straits' version is a lot longer than Everly's, which is quite nice. But I also love that that unusual instrument that they use, that you hear in the sections when they're not singing, and that and everything. So yeah, that's basically that's where it all comes from. That it's in honor of my 3 favorite guitarists. And then of course, and that So that's basically where my three favourite guitarists come from. And yes, where comes due. Thank you to the other half for suggesting that I actually have those letters added to it. I didn't think of that at the time. And that's even where the yeah, and we even did them in what we call appropriate colors, because I'm not sure if anyone would have noticed that much detail in that. But yeah, H for Holly is in the Statue of Liberty green, because immediately when I was thinking of those letters, I was thinking what would be the appropriate colors for them. And to me, Statue of Liberty, hands down, for Buddy. I know he came from Texas, and of course he's buried in Texas, but of course he made his you know, he got his record deal in New York. He met his wife in New York. He lived in New York. That's where he made his career, after all. So that was pretty easy. And then of course, well, Jones, that was easy. He's Scottish, so we went with dark blue for the Scottish flag. And then we found out, I say we, because we were looking it up at the same time we were. I didn't realise, and neither did the other half actually, that Mark Knopfler, even though he doesn't live there as far as I know, he is actually Glaswegian. He was born in Glasgow. So then we thought, well, what about maybe the Scottish thistle? And we went with purple. So that's where that comes from. And last but not least, I know you guys like to hear how I find these artists and that, because that was actually a bit of a struggle for me, because I was thinking, I suppose I need a realism artist. Once again, I thought I needed a realism artist, and I was kind of struggling on that, and I don't know why. Just you sort of get an instinct for these things and that, and I did think about going back to Siobhan, my previous artist, but you know what? She has been doing a lot more grey and black, you know, black work lately. So I thought, I don't know why, that just doesn't feel right. And I felt like, you know, I want to try and find someone that specialises in a guitar. Funny enough, in the end, I didn't actually go to someone that does guitar tattoos, because that's the thing. I went through my entire Instagram, and believe me, I follow a lot of artists on Instagram. I don't follow thousands, but I've got at least, I think, a couple of hundred on there, I think, if I recall, or maybe nearly a couple of hundred. And I really struggled, because do you know what? I didn't find one single guitar tattoo at all. And I started to think, seriously, does no one ever get guitar tattoos and that? So I went to, like I said, the Facebook group that I'm in, and I asked for recommendations, because do you know what? I actually have found some good artists like that. And I asked around the sort of area that I wanted and that, and one of them came back with 2 suggestions, and one of them was New Image Tattoo Studios in Wisbech. And of course, when I first thought that, okay, before I even look up that artist, because the immediate thing that went in my head is, Wisbech, I bet that's going to be a pain in the neck to get to. So I'm not going to fall into the trap that I'm going to go look at the artist and I'll find one I love, only to discover that it will be literally a nightmare to get to. So I did it the other way round. And then lo and behold, I find, oh my God, all I have to do is just go down to Peterborough, as you saw from my video, and then literally get the bus free of charge, because I have a bus pass and that right outside. And it's only about 45 minutes from Peterborough. And I'm thinking, that works. So I went on their, and I don't know why, I looked on their Facebook page and that before I went on Instagram, which is kind of unusual, but it was probably a good thing I did actually in the end. And you know what? I was kind of struggling to think, I like the idea of this studio. It's somewhere new and it's somewhere different I've never been to, if you know what I mean. But I seriously couldn't find anyone that did like colour realism that could sort of do this. But you know what? I didn't want to give up. So in this case, what I actually did is I messaged the studio and I asked them, saying what I wanted, but could they actually, because I can't quite work out who would be the best artist for this, could they recommend, like, could they, you know, I was asking them who they thought would be the best artist, And funny enough, they did get back to me quite quickly. I think it was within a day or so, if I recall. And they said, yeah, they actually recommended James. Unfortunately, I messaged them over a weekend and that. So they had to wait until he came back in the studio. But yeah, he pretty much... now you think, if you look at James's Instagram, he's only on Instagram. He's not on Facebook. It's only the studio on Facebook. And that you would think, that so does not look like a sort of artist that specializes in, and you usually go for in that. Yeah, he does anything quite geeky, like, oh my god, is you know, funny enough, he reminds me a lot of Jim in a funny kind of way, except he is a lot more specialized on that. He does a lot of anime. He's done like Star Wars tattoos. He does anything geeky, if you get my drift. But he does the sort of the cartoon and that. But when I, you know, but he showed that he was pretty confident in what. So and then I started chatting with him one-on-one over Instagram, and it was then, because that's the other thing. The reason why it's a rainbow mesh is because Buddy always played the few times that he did play the Fender Cast. I don't think he played it all the time, or, you know, maybe half the time or whatever. But he always played the brown guitar. And Malcolm Jones, I always thought of Malcolm always primarily with the brown guitar. But since then I have gone back and watched more concerts and seen, he actually has played a red guitar too. And Mark always played the red guitar, as far as I could tell. You know, it's actually a trademark of one of his album covers and everything. And that. So I said to, and my initial thought was to get the brown guitar, but then maybe, I don't know, maybe get some sort of stripe down the side in red or whatever. But when I explained that to him, he came up with an even better idea, and you would have seen it in the tattoo video. He showed me a photograph of a Fender Stratocast that literally was a complete mesh. It was dark brown at the base and then went into red. And of course, as soon as he showed me that, I'm thinking, that is perfect. And that it's a complete mesh of both of them, particularly even more now I've discovered that, yeah, Malcolm did play a red guitar too. So that's also where that comes from. So yeah, guys, after this very, very lengthy video, that's the whole story pretty much behind these guitar and script tattoo. And that, yes, yeah, I'll be leaving the second skin on for another 3 days. Yeah, like I said, I could leave this on for 7 days and all. And then fingers crossed, and we don't have any issues. I hope we don't. I don't believe we will, because, you know, the second skin stayed on and all of that lot. So I think the worst part of it's over and all of that lot. But yeah, let's just hope it all heals up and everything's good. So take care, guys. Bye bye.